How about stresses on Medicare? Okay, now Medicare situation is a little bit different. Okay, Medicare, you got to break it down into Part A, hospital, Part B, doctor, Part D, prescription drugs. Okay, Part A, hospital is not in a problem. That's a separate fund. There's no problem with Part A, hospital. It still has a little surplus, right? Part B, that's doctors. That's a little bit under stress, Part B. Part D, as I said, is the big problem, prescription drugs, because they never pass a tax to pay for it. It's been paying out of deficits all along, and it's costing $50 to $100 billion a year in deficits, because what did George Bush do? 2005 prescription drug bill, passes it, doesn't pass any tax to pay for it, right? And it's really a big pharmaceutical subsidy bill is what it is. You know, we're passing the money to the big pharma here, and people are getting a little bit of benefit, you know, a little trickle down there, the seniors. But there's no price controls, no cost controls. It's illegal to go to Canada and get the same drugs from the same company. You know, businesses can have free trade, but you can't. You know, you can't buy things in other countries just because you want to. Okay, so Part D is a problem. Part B and A are under stress because of runaway healthcare costs, double digit, most of the past decade. Okay. Nevertheless, despite these problems that exist in A, B, and D, right? The Social Security trustees for Medicare, for the Medicare Trust in 2011 said that all you need to do to fix Part A and Part B is 0.25% increase in the Medicare payroll tax now, and 0.25% increase 10 years from now. Instead of paying 1.45, you know, you pay 1.70. Big deal. You wouldn't even see that in your paycheck. That solves all the problems for Part A and Part B Medicare for as long as you can see. And the costs are going to drop in 20 years after all this baby boomers disappear, you see. So we got a little bit of a bulge in cost for 20 years, and then that's going to go down anyway. And all you need is 0.25% now and 10 years from now, and you got all that problem solved. I mean, that's not a crisis, is it? That's not a crisis in Medicare at all. And yeah, you got a little bit of a crisis in Part D prescription drugs, but if you put a 1% tax on that, that would solve that problem, payroll tax. I mean, when you think about it, we provide medical coverage, full medical coverage for almost 50 million people on Medicare for 1.45%. I mean, that's, talk about efficient. You can't find anything more efficient than that. Single-payer healthcare elsewhere in the world, other countries, 10% of their GDP for medical care. What do we pay? 18%. Well, who's making the other 8%? It's the paper pushers. It's the insurance companies. You don't need them in the picture. Okay. What are some of the positions out there? Well, the T-Publicans, Paul Ryan and those people, want to institute vouchers. Right? They sort of backed off on that. Vouchers means the end of Medicare 10 years from now. They want to reduce the cost of living adjustment in Medicare. They want to raise the age in Medicare. No adjustment for inflation in the vouchers. Okay. What about Simpson-Bowles? You know, this commission. You know, I'm really worried because Obama, when on January 2nd, when he announced this fiscal cliff settlement, you know, and in announcing it, you know, he kind of praised it, and he said, quote, Medicare is our #1 deficit problem. That worries me when he says Medicare is the #1 deficit problem, because it is not. It is not. I read you those 8 areas that are the problem, and it's not Medicare. And Medicare can be fixed very simply with 0.25%. But yet, the president thinks that's our #1 problem. And again, in his State of the Union address, he said, I like Simpson-Bowles when it comes to, you know, solving Social Security and Medicare. Now, what does Simpson-Bowles propose? You don't know, I'm sure. I'm going to tell you what Simpson-Bowles, all of you folks on Medicare out there, proposes that the president likes. To institute a new $550 a year deductible on Part A A, B, whatever. You've got Medicare, you're going to pay $550 deductible. That's Simpson Bowles. To raise the age of eligibility at 67, 68. Secondly. All right? And to institute only 80% coverage of hospital. You know, like right now you only get 80% coverage on Part B doctors. You got to go get supplemental. You want the other 20%? Well, they want to do the same thing for Part A. Now, when they say, oh, we're not going to cut Medicare benefits, what they're, you know, the politicians are squirming. They're playing games with you. No, they're not going to cut your benefits. They're just going to raise out of pocket what you're going to pay for them. That's what they mean when they say what Joe Biden said last year, I guarantee in the second term we will not cut benefits. No, they won't. They'll make you pay more for what you got. That's what it's all about, you see. In July 2011, when all this debt ceiling thing was going on, remember the big deal, the grand bargain? Well, Obama had said, offered to John Boehner $700 billion cut in Social Security. $700 billion. And of course, you know, the left-wing Democratic Party choked on that. There was a big revolt in Congress. He had to back off of it. Well, last November, he offered another $340 billion cut. You know, they're willing to cut Medicare. They're willing to cut Medicare. And on Social Security, they're all in agreement to cut the COLA, and they're all in agreement to raise the age of eligibility. Those two things on Social Security. And, not talking about it, but really make eligibility on Social Security disability insurance much tighter. Too many people, they think, are taking SSDI. Right, those are the three things they're going to go after on Social Security. And on Medicare, it's Simpson Bowles. It's deductibles, it's co-pays, and so forth that they're looking at, even though there's not a problem there.